Welcome to Love and Trauma, the real deal. I'm Danielle Sebastian, best-selling author, coach, and yes, I've been through the marriage trenches myself. This show is all about how to actually deal with trauma in relationships and make it work without losing your mind. If you're ready for honest talk, no fluff, and tools that cut through the noise, tune in, because let's face it, love can be a bit of a mess, but it's a mess worth figuring out. This is Love and Trauma, the real deal. We're doing what I love most on this show, slowing down to really listen. Welcome back to Love and Trauma, the real deal, because today's episode is really something special. Because sometimes in all the noise and advice and social media ready sound bites about healing, we forget that the real magic happens in honest conversations. So today I'm going to bring you my favorite moments from my 3 shows from this last month. These are the most raw, real, and inspiring women I've had the privilege to sit down with. And these women don't just talk about resilience. You guys, they live it. They've cracked themselves open to share the messy, painful, and beautiful truths about what trauma does to us and how we can actually heal. So let me do some introductions. First, you're going to hear from Sabrina Beer. She's a powerhouse marketing executive, a seasoned real estate professional, and a keynote speaker. But her story, it's one of surviving a devastating car accident, walking away from a coma to be told she might never walk again, and then dancing in heels. But the hardest part, the trauma that lingered in her relationships, her body, and her sense of self. Sabrina did not hold back. She let us in, and she showed us what it means to be seen, even when it's terrifying. My next interview was with Elle Petrillo. She also is a powerhouse. She's a personal branding strategist who's helped over 1,000 thought leaders, including New York Times bestselling authors and top podcasters, cut through the noise and change lives. But what I loved most about sitting down with Elle isn't her success, it's her story. She lost her dad at 13, survived a string of trauma-filled relationships, and endured emotional abusive marriage with someone with addiction. But she didn't just survive, she transformed. She really got curious. She stopped pushing everything down and started doing deep, somatic, spiritual, messy work to understand her body, her patterns, and her beliefs. And in her conversation, she shared not just what happened, but some of the exact tools that helped her get unstuck. And finally, today, we're going to hear from Emily Gangle. She's not a therapist. She's not a coach. She's a stay-at-home mom and a writer who's done the brave, unglamorous work of unpacking trauma in the quiet corners of motherhood and marriage. Emily was able to sit down with me and spoke with raw honesty about what emotional flashbacks, raising boys in a home touched by trauma, and the moment she realized her silence was teaching her child to shrink. And the most powerful part, she finally took off what she calls the emotional bomb suit and started living unarmored. These women prove something I want every listener to know. Trauma is not the end of the story. It's the place where you can choose to begin again. So let's get comfortable, grab your coffee, take a deep breath, and let's dive into these incredible moments with these 3 women.
College graduate, and I was so excited to go off to college. I grew up in Houston and I got accepted to Florida State University. Go Seminoles, if any Seminoles are out there. And I was so excited, and I had moved into the dorm, And honestly, even though I was so excited to go, I was so lonely. And after like a couple of days, I like was really missing my family and my friends because I didn't know anyone there, but I was excited about all the possibilities and the parties and the people and all the things, right? The independence. So I met some people in my dorm on a Friday night. School was going to start on Monday. And we were just going to kind of go check out the land, right? Like see where we were going to be hanging out. They were like, "Hey, Sabrina, you want to come?" They all kind of knew each other. They were all kind of from Florida, most of them anyway. And I was like, "Yeah, sure, cool." So I like put on my cute outfit, the one you feel like super confident in. I'm like, "I'm going to go meet some new people. Awesome." And we went out for the night. And we went to this place called the Late Night Library. I don't know if it's still there or not, but it's a bar. But we were laughing about how we were going to tell our parents that we were at the late night library, and all of this stuff. And then I saw we were leaving because we were going to go check out other things, and I saw this big red exit sign like above the door, right? And that's the last thing I saw. And the rest was kind of told to me. But we were walking across the street and they were kind of in their groups because they all knew each other. And I was kind of like in the middle, kind of solo. And a drunk driver came around the corner and rammed right into me. And I ran up on his windshield, he slammed on the brakes, and then he threw me like 100 yards into a ditch on the side of the road. And I was pronounced dead on scene from the paramedics. I can't imagine how tragic that was for
Oh
those other
my.
students that saw it happen. The driver took off, and they ended up catching him later. He was under the influence and had this whole rap sheet and all this stuff. But um, anyway, obviously I wasn't dead because here I am. I woke up after being in a coma for a few days in the hospital, and both of my parents were there. And that was not, they didn't live around there. So they came in. And I woke up and I remember like seeing them and feeling like, oh, wow, okay. Like, okay, am I in heaven or am I like, what's happening? I like, the beeps of the
Because
hospital and
you
all this
don't
stuff.
remember anything after the exit sign.
Oh, you know what? I do remember one thing. This is actually an integral
What?
part of the story. When
Okay.
the paramedic put me on the stretcher and put me into the ambulance, I don't know if it's my weird sense of humor. I don't know, but I like kind of jolted awake a little bit and I was like, damn, this thing is hard. And the paramedic like laughed, like giggled, right? Because like that's the response you're gonna have, And
All this.
yeah,
And
all this stuff. My body was
that's what you.
bruised and bleeding and broken and all this stuff. And I'm like, damn, this stretcher's hard. But when he laughed, it made me feel like almost like this weird sense of hope that I've now identified as an adult. But that laugh is what like was like, oh, it's you're okay. Like
You're going
even
to
though
be
I
okay.
wasn't like okay, but I wasn't dead, right? And so after being in a coma for
Oh,
a couple of days and waking up in the hospital, I was like, oh, wow. Okay. Like it took, I'm like, where am
who
I? What
told you?
happened?
Was it your parents? Did they tell you what happened?
Yeah, they told me. I don't really remember
You don't
exactly how I
remember?
got all the information and but yeah, people started kind of breaking it down for me.
Then what was those days after the coma like, my dear?
Yeah, well, I had shattered my tibia and fibula, which are the two main bones between your knee and your ankle of your leg, like literally broken in half, shattered it in
Oh,
pieces. And tons of other like battle scars all over my body from the windshield or the impact or the ground or whatever. But I remember the doctor saying to me, Sabrina, like, we're going to do what we can do. You're young, your body's going to be able to heal pretty well, but you'll probably never be able to walk normally again. And I
mm,
remember at that moment, I was like, I think I said the F word, but on here I'll say, screw it, is what I
yeah.
said. I'm going to walk again. And I don't exactly know where that like inner grit came from or that like I don't know. I have a lot of theories, but something inside of me was like, no, this is not going to be the story of my life. Like I am going to And I'm happy to say that now, I mean, it's forever and ever later, 30 years later at this point, but I can dance in heels, I can do lunges at the gym, like I just never gave up. And still to this day, I have residual effects from that accident, but I just keep going. The thing that carried through the whole time was I always felt really broken.
Tell me,
Yeah.
did you date? Did it kind of affect those type of relationships at all?
Yeah, well, I will say that it still affects that. I'm 48 and I have never been married. I've never lived with a guy. I've had, a couple long-term boyfriends, but not very many and not super duper long. I am a lot healthier with my attachment styles, for lack of a better word. But I was always, it definitely carried through. Like people really liked me, and I didn't realize that at the time I was really self-sabotaging myself before because I was like, oh, they're never going to be able to deal with my health issues.
Tell me, did you just keep people at arm's length? Were you pushing them away with just when they wanted to get close?
Yeah, I had my family, I'm really close to my family, so they knew everything. I have still to this day a couple of, girlfriends that kind of knew a lot. But when it came even to friendships, like I would throw myself a birthday party every year and there'd be 75 people there, right? But they were like all acquaintances, right? They weren't really, I never really had this like tight circle because I didn't want to be seen as broken. I didn't want to be seen as less than. I didn't want to be seen as one of the things I like to say is I didn't want to be seen as the injured lion in the pack. Um, and that worked out really well for me professionally, right? Like professionally, it was like, yeah, I was a competitor, I was fierce competition, like, all this stuff, right? But what I didn't realize until later in life that I was doing the same thing to my personal relationships and I was showing up like that. And I wasn't, and when it came to men, I was like, gosh, if I really tell them who I really am, if I really tell them that like I have diseases that are never going to be cured, like I have issues that are never going to get better. I've had surgery scars that are never going to go away, that they wouldn't, I just felt like nobody would really accept that. So I would either find things wrong with somebody, I would push them away. I'd be like, well, you're never going to be able to handle it anyway. But I never told them what it was that they needed to handle, right? Like, and so I would just kind of pushed everybody away.
And so you've been in for the autoimmune for in remission for you said 5 or 6 years.
Hmm.
Has that felt good? What is this like? Do you
Yeah.
feel?
It's cool.
Yeah.
The crazy thing about it is because I was in survival mode for so long and I was sick for so long, I actually had to grieve that person, that sick person, because I didn't really know how to function in life as a healthy person. And I didn't know how to do it, be a healthy person, if that even makes sense. And so it
It
took
does.
first couple
It
of years
does.
to like, what?
So was it kind of like you had to realize like now that I've done all these things while being sick, this is a new chapter for me and I don't know what to do.
Girl, it's not even a new chapter. It's like a whole new novel. Like it's like a whole new character.
Is it scary to embrace that?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, every day I have to talk to myself because it's not cured, right? I'm just in remission.
No. You're just
And so
constantly waiting for that other shoe to drop still,
I'm
huh?
not anymore, but I did
Okay.
spend some time just like, gosh, you got me crying.
I'm
Um,
sorry. You're going, you guys. Thank you for sharing all this.
Yeah, no, of
Thank
course.
you.
If it helps one person feel like, "Oh, wow, really? Like I did
Yeah.
that, or I can do that, or wow.
Yeah.
Yes, it's scary because One is I feel like I'm starting for the past 5 years, it's been like this new life, right? Where, like I said, it feels like a whole nother book. And so that's a
Mm.
little scary to, yes, I have my career and yes, I have the people, but even friendships have changed. Sometimes people are like, you don't really know your friends until you've been through something tough, right? Who sticks by,
Mhm.
which is true. But there's also relationships where people like you because you are kind of broken. And once you start excelling, they don't want to be friends with you as you excel, which is a very funny, weird thing
Oh.
that I never experienced before because I was always the sick girl. And that's been interesting. I've lost a lot of friendships recently, in the past 5 years, or just have gone away. Um, I've gotten new friends. Like it really is like this transformative. But yes, I'm always scared that when is it going to come back?
What would you tell the version of you who thought chaos or illness was her baseline?
I wish that when I was younger, I wish I knew that everybody is a little broken. Everybody's got their
You
cross to
weren't
bear.
the only one out there, girl.
That's
That was
right.
broke. Yeah.
And the same way that outside of the leg, the learning to walk again thing, but everything else, this invisible illness, people are struggling with all kinds of invisible illnesses, right? It could be the death of a parent, it could be, whatever, all the childhood things people go through, and we're all lost and we're all just trying to figure it out.
One last question. If someone listening is seeing themselves in your story, where should they begin? What's one small step that helped you?
Um, Girl, guy, whoever's listening, uh, everybody's going through stuff, and don't compare where you are in your journey of this one life that you get to live with where somebody else is on the journey of where they are in their one life.
had torn my Achilles, so I was on pain medication and we had just broken up. And so I look at my nightstand. This is actually, I've never talked about this. It's embarrassing, but it's true. And I think other people can relate. Is I had my pain medication. I had, I think, a bottle of Jack Daniels
Cigarettes, the whole thing. I'm just kidding.
and or something. And I was just like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, why am I doing this to myself when it's like, I know it's like, but at the time, what's crazy is like, I'm killing it at work, right? Like, I am
Yeah.
doing like on the outside, no one can see any of that. And then inside, you're going like, I'm literally poisoning myself because I can't deal with all the hurt and the pain that I'm experiencing. And so I think that was when I started like really going down into I need to be surrounded by friends who are really on a spiritual journey and like a healing journey and like get involved in a group. And luckily, it was some other guy that I met who is awesome and we're still friends today, but it was never going to work out. But he introduced me to people, his friends that are very much, and that really helped start changing my life and getting through. Hey, what are these core wounds and start like getting into the stuff. And people would say like your own journey. And then I learned about somatic therapy from one of our clients at Brand Builders Group. And I think she changed my life with understanding, a lot of things that there's so much that goes into somatic therapy and there's so many different practitioners for it, but really understanding like how to use your voice and how to feel safe in your like find safety in your body and understanding how to regulate your nervous system and like all these things we're just not taught and that have understanding like different levels of consciousness and being able to accept people where they are and just like all of these different things that I think have made me more better at my job because I can relate to people a lot more and I can speak openly and vulnerably with them when they are struggling and like support them and encourage them, right? But I think it's made me a better friend, a better daughter, a better like just like a human being overall because I have been able to face like my biggest demons by not being ashamed of like, these are all things I went through and I didn't know till I knew, right? Like we just don't know what we need until we know what we don't need, I feel like.
So tell me, do you feel like you're still living in survival mode?
No, I don't. I think, no, I think part of that is I've really forgiven. So like, and I hate the word boundaries, but like it is a thing, right? About a year and a half or 2 years ago, I met up with my ex-husband so he can make amends. And I told him, I was like, this is more for you than it is for me. Like I forgave you forever ago. And unfortunately, he did relapse shortly after and called me while he was under the influence. And my first initial reaction was I freaked out and I'm going, I have to fix this. I have to do it. And it just showed me, I was like, my gosh, I've done all this work, but yet I'm still going into, I have to fix this. And I took a beat and like sat down and I did some breath work and I was like, oh my gosh, he's not asking me for help. He's just in his same pattern. And so instead, I reached out to his mom and I just said, hey, I just need to let you know someone probably needs to check on him. Da 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 da. The next day, she let me know he's back in treatment and she had asked or told me she would keep me updated. And I said, respectfully, I don't need an update. And then he reached back out about a year later and kept calling and texting me. And then finally I was like, I didn't respond. I didn't have anything to say to him, but I, for the first time, blocked him. And instead of doing it, and at first I wasn't sure if I could, but what's cool is one of my close friends here in Nashville actually is in recovery and he had been in and out of treatment for probably a decade, had gone to 13 facilities. And I met him because we went on a date. And then the more I learned about his journey, I had said, I can't be in a relationship with someone who is in recovery just because it's too much for me. But we became great friends. And I reached out to him and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, do I need to respond? And he was like, you don't owe him anything. And I think even though I knew that, I think sometimes Oprah said one thing that every person she ever interviewed wanted to know at the end of the show was, did I do a good job? I think as human beings, we're always looking for validation. And we can say, I don't need anyone's validation, like I don't need anyone's permission. I don't think there's anything wrong for needing someone to just tell you, like, no, like this is okay. You can put yourself first. You can block him, you can do this. So that was like a really freeing thing to hear, which allowed me to feel really good about cutting off all ties there because I'm going, that's his journey. Like I am no longer on that journey with him. And so it's all going back to survival. It's just like, I think when you're learning to make decisions that are in your best interest, not to be selfish, but because that's like how your life is yours. Like no one else is living it. No one else has to wake up every day and do what you do and deal with your feelings and deal with like the challenges and the stress. Like only you have to do that. So why are we allowing other people to make decisions on our behalf with it or to impact that in a negative way? Like we don't have to. And so I think by understanding like I'm not the best at this because I have a really insane high threshold for other people's bullshit, as my friends say, because I'm so empathetic. I'm not the best at this, but I think every time I make a decision that is in service of me and my truth and my values and what I want life to be, it's just making me stronger with that. So I think because of that, I wouldn't say I'm in survival mode at all. I don't think like no part of me feels that way, which is so freeing.
That is so freeing. I'm so happy for you with that. And oftentimes, many of the things that we do default to doing don't end up letting them heal either.
Well, what I love about you doing the show is like,
Yeah.
what they say with addiction, like secrets make you sick. It's the same thing. Like we are all human having a human experience and we're all a lot more alike than we are different. And so when we pretend like there are days that we never struggle with depression or we never struggle with anxiety or we never struggle with like not having boundaries or like with our worthiness or whatever, it's like, okay, great, you're perfect. Like, I don't believe you. It's just like a lot of people just aren't comfortable with being that open with it when it's going, there's nothing wrong with you just because you're dealing with that. And we can't heal in silence either, right? We can't heal in a solo environment. We're built for community. And so you just have to like build your own community for yourself.
Yeah, I love that analogy of how there's a negative and a positive and they come together. So many of the behaviors that I see, especially as I'm working, with partners of trauma, is that the coping mechanisms that we developed, for whatever reason, it doesn't have to be, we all have that. We've all developed coping mechanisms for things that helped us survive, that then can take, the pendulum can go too far the other way to where they don't become helpful anymore. And there should not be shame in that.
No.
There shouldn't be shame in that. And so people feel they're weak, or they just feel so much shame for addressing that piece of it. And that's what I'm hoping that these conversations can do for people, and that the show can do, is to make that more normal, so that we can actually do something about those things, because they can be tweaked in adult, especially in adult relationships and as adults.
Yeah, I think it's hard because it's all about being extreme honesty with yourself, so you can be
Right.
honest with other people. And relationships today, like I've had, a relationship last year that I was really excited about. It's like he wasn't honest in the beginning about not wanting more kids, right? But because I was so honest about this is what I want, it came to a breaking point of like whatever it might be. And I think when we are not honest with ourselves with what we need and what we want, and you can't have a truly connected relationship with people. I saw someone recently talk about green flags or red flags in friendships. It's like, if you can't go deep with someone, it's because you are in my belief is that you're unwilling to be honest with yourself and who you are. And there's no great relationships built when you're just playing surface level.
Yeah, if you don't know what you really want, you're going to keep attracting the things that you don't want, that don't make you happy. It seems so simple, but it's not.
Yeah, I just think the biggest thing I would say to anyone listening is there are so many different ways of going about healing your own trauma. But the point is that you have to choose to be resourceful and like heal it. And once you do, it's like life gets so good. And not every day is good, right? But it's like, I feel like I'm a much more positive person. I'm much more protective of what I listen to and who I talk to, and like the things that come my ecosystem. Because I'm going, I don't have time for that. Like, that's not what I want to fill my life with. And I think when you are proactive about choosing what you want to fill your life with, like you're living the life that you love, and we all deserve that.
I want to do something different with you because you are just so open. Can I just do like 5 rapid fire questions for you to close this?
You have
Because
them,
I
right?
think, I have them right
Okay.
here. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. One belief you had to bury to become who you are today.
I am worthy of everything I want.
One relationship you had to rewire or release in your healing process. One boundary that changed your life.
I'm not going to raise my voice with you.
One thing that makes you feel most alive today.
Real conversations.
What do you hope women take away from your story today? The real unfiltered version.
It's okay to look like you have it all together on the outside and tell people that you don't have it all together on the inside. It's okay to raise your hand and be like, I need help right now. Like I literally called one of my best friends today and I was like, I need to meet with you. I need time with you. I need to process something with you. When can you get me on your schedule? One of my best friends. So I'm like, Friday night, we're getting together. So it's like, you've got to ask for what you need.
It's so true. When I was when I was going through it, after I wrote the book, people were just like, I had no idea what you were going through. You hid it so well. And my instinct was to be like proud of myself. And now I'm so not proud of myself.
It's sad because
It's
like,
sad.
that's what I think about. Like when my family didn't know, I'm like, I'm so sad for myself that gift of, because I think if you do open up to more people, especially the people that know you best, you can solve the issue so much faster, or you can heal so much faster because you have the right support around you. When I think, I'm like, I don't think I would have stayed as long as I did if my family and my best friends knew what was going on.
Right. And I think that for those of us who have been through the same patterns or keep going through the same things in relationships, that sometimes we're like, my gosh, they don't want to hear it again. Right. But the fact of the matter is, I think back and I'm like, if one of my friends came to me and was like, I just need, like you just said, I need somebody, I need to go out to see, I would love that time. I would do it in a heartbeat, and they would do it for you too.
Yeah.
They want the best for you.
I think what's true too about that, and this is something I've also come to learn Because I see people get really annoyed with like their friends. I'm like, why are they doing that again? That is the same thing with people with addiction. They're going to do what they want to do, period. So you can either judge them and give them a hard time for it, or you could just be like, hey, I just want to bring awareness to this for you. I'm going to love you, whatever you decide, but I just need to call you to a little bit of a higher level of like making sure you're aware of the decisions you're making. So that way you're thinking both sides of it. And but I think if we could just go, we're all going to do what we want to do no matter what. It's not always good. So you just got to choose. Are you going to be the friend that people can come to and talk to, or are you going to be the friend that they have to hide everything from?
Yeah, and it's almost like it may be that you want to, but you're not ready yet.
Yeah.
Right? Or that it's just isn't the right time and they've got to get there.
Yeah. But I just pray that anyone who's going through a hard time, like you give yourself that permission to ask for help. And
Thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I loved this conversation. Your story is amazing, and your work that you're doing to help others tell their story. Thank you so much for everything you do.
Thanks.
Banging your head against the wall, trying to navigate the complexities of a relationship impacted by childhood trauma. It doesn't have to be this daunting. When you're married to a partner with unresolved childhood trauma, it can feel like you're walking on eggshells, never quite knowing what will set them off. No matter what you try, it feels like there's always something triggering another emotional response that seems completely out of context. And the harder you try to fix it, the more discouraged you feel. So what's the issue here? Navigating marriage with a trauma survivor is different. The love languages don't work. Date nights don't work. Self-help books don't help. But here's the good news. I've created something that does work. Something built from years of hard-earned lessons and real-life experience. Ready to take the first step toward real change? Let's talk. I'm offering a free one-on-one call where we'll dive into what's going on in your relationship and figure out a way forward together. This isn't just another quick chat. It's a chance to finally be heard, to share what you're going through with someone who truly gets it. No judgment, just real support. So if you're ready to start making sense of it all and find a little more peace in your marriage, book your free call now. Your happiness, your peace, and your relationship are worth it. Let's do it together.
All places. I was backpacking on one of my impromptu just runaway trips, like as a mid-20 something. And yeah, we met and we did long distance for a little bit. It was really super romantic. All of the sort of cliche things for this sort of relationship in the beginning, you know, like everything's perfect and just lovely, super handsome guy. He lived on a houseboat. And, you know, what girl isn't going to be like, absolutely, you know, like this is perfect, dream life, you know. And it was within, I think, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, I was pregnant with my firstborn. Yeah. So
Oh my God.
Things went very fast. And it was almost immediately with the pregnancy that like those red flags that I was like, it'll be fine once I just get there, you know, like once we're back in his space and everything, like everything will be all good.
Can
The
you talk
pregnancy.
just briefly about what some of those red flags were that you were noticing?
Yeah, aggression. Like, so the arguments that sort of came up, like it was just totally different, like a very Jekyll and Hyde sort of arguments that were happening. You know, there really wasn't that much sort of connection between us. Okay. And you still just sort of in total survival mode. So with our firstborn, his name's Darwin, it was just sort of, yeah, really sort of straight up survival, like just sort of getting through that. And then by the time the second born came around, which was also, yeah, so he was born in January, and in the Netherlands, it wasn't really quite a lockdown, but by about February, you know, they were like, stay home, work from home. And home, you know, like going to work is sort of like when I could take off the bomb suit, so to speak, you know, like, so I was like, and then suddenly couldn't do that anymore. So that, like, that period, so for a couple of years, and then plus with my second born, that really was like the change. Like I say in a lot of my writing, like that was when I went crazy. Like couldn't hide it anymore, you know, like I couldn't keep the facade up. I couldn't, you know, I really realized that like something had to change. So I started, looking into myself and seeing like, these are, I know what's happening with me. Like this is all survival responses. Like this is all.
So what was happening with you? Can you describe that?
I was, it might sound strange, but like I was just like totally over myself, like that whole knowing that you're not crazy feeling, like that I knew that I was responding accordingly to a dysfunctional environment. And I think that was the key, because in the beginning you think like, I'm going crazy, we're having the same arguments over and over again over like tiny things.
So you started to realize that the emotions that were coming your way, that were, you know, you felt like you had to wear a bomb suit for, were coming from somewhere else.
That's right. Yeah. So when I started,
and where were they coming from? Did you ever?
Well, I knew when I started reading about trauma and emotional, just like deep traumas, like then of course you're going to look also at your partner and be like, you know, his dad passed when he was 19, and he also had like a really angry dad, which was like the stories. He was open to talk about it, and all like was very happy to discuss like what had been going on in his childhood. And so like I had that in the back of my head. But you know, it comes to a point where again it's like I say, awareness is nothing without action, you know. So it's like for years it was like, I've got an angry dad and that's why I am, because the arguments would come, you know, the emotional abuse, the aggression, and then however like he would leave, come back, and everything's like, you know, I'm sorry, or you know, like everything was.
So you knew that part of his background.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that was like what was sort of keeping me like, he doesn't know what he's doing, so to speak, you know, like I knew that it was a reaction from what was happening from him. And so that's really when I started learning about complex PTSD. So I was like a shutdown type of, like I'm the be small, like just don't make a bother. And it's like those two were like drawn together almost, because he's like the explosive one and I'm just there like, let the explosion happen and just get on with what you're doing, and you know, everything will just simmer down. But
when did you realize that you were going to have to start speaking up?
It actually came when I was with my son at his like a daycare, so well, not daycare, but it's like a Petersfield. It's sort of like a preschool almost. And classic, like thought I was doing the best job, like that we were so close because I was home with him and he was speaking English and Dutch, but he was really shy. And one of my things was always just being afraid that like he was going to turn into this anger, like, you know, inherit this anger. That was my massive focal point that I tried to speak to my husband about, was like, don't pass it on, you know, like when you try to have these discussions, of course. But then the lady was talking to me about my son Darwin and his behavior. He was only 2.5 or 3 at the time, and she was saying like, he is like, he doesn't say anything, kids are just coming up and taking his toys. You know, he needs to learn how to speak up. Like he needs to learn how to say something. And I was heartbroken, but it was like a mirror was put in front of me, because I was like, this, it's not his behavior I should be worrying about, it's my behavior. And so he's witnessing the stronger person come in and that you just stay silent. So that was huge. Like just sitting there at the table, I was like, this is massive.
This is time.
It is time. Exactly.
Well, kudos to you, because that really is how these patterns continue.
Exactly.
Right?
That's right. Exactly. And I was witnessing it right there. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. That the patterns continue unless we do something about it.
Exactly. Yeah. So as heartbreaking as it was, you know, you've got to make change. Like it was you know, it's a blessing in disguise that you can see that and use that as like, that really was like the catalyst of change for me in my life.
What
that it
did
was
you
just
do
like,
from
enough
there?
is enough.
Yeah. What did you do?
Really started reading a lot more about it. Anything I could get my hands on, I was reading. I was listening to articles.
And specifically on like trauma?
Complex trauma, because I knew that that's what I had, and I knew that like the patterns that was happening, like that he was also exhibiting those. It was exactly the same. We just had different reactions, you know, like different outputs. So I knew that that's what it was about. They were all coping mechanisms
from your childhood. They just
exactly.
And then you two were opposites with your
yes, very much. But we were both opposites with our coping mechanisms, but it was just playing out, you know. And I knew that when you really start to unpack, like with trauma and everything, you think like, this is like it's a blueprint, you know, like we can use these tools and we can overcome it. Like we don't have to let it run our lives. Like this isn't who we are, like to an absolute, like we can change, you know. And so it came to the point where like I was so sick of myself at the point of being like having this victim mentality also, where it was like, you know, if he wasn't so angry, then I could start healing. Once he gets control of himself, then it'll be a safe space for me to start being able to do this work. And you've got to get rid of that voice.
It's very easy to feel out of control.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That
absolutely.
There's nothing that you can do if your partner
absolutely
doesn't change or doesn't do the work. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's
and then all
what
of
it
a
was
sudden,
like.
with your son, you're like, oh, maybe there are some things I can.
There are some things you can do.
I might be part of.
Absolutely.
It takes two to tango.
Which is, and is a massive gut punch, you know, because you think, because with that victim mentality also in your ego, you want to believe that it's somebody else and that it's not you, and that you're doing everything you can to try to protect them from it. But like in the post with the bomb suit, like how I say, like you've got tactical gloves on and you're wearing a suit, like I couldn't get close enough to them, you know, I couldn't hug them the way they needed to be hugged because I'm wearing this protective armor that I think I need to be wearing. And so that's what comes at a real cost, you know, is your connection with your children. And that I saw that obviously it was evident with when I was speaking to the teacher at the daycare, you know. So
did you start working on yourself first then?
100%.
After that realization?
Because there was no realizing that there's just no getting through to my husband, but also that you can't, like that whole, what's the saying about like you can lead a horse to water, you know, but you can't make him drink. So I was like, also a response with trauma is like, hey, guess what, we're messed up, here's the evidence, you know, they're going to be explosive about it, like nothing wrong with me. Like I knew that that's how the ego works, like it's always going to be like, no, stay back, we're totally fine.
Yeah. So once you know what the trauma is, makes them default to, everybody starts defaulting to, right?
Yeah.
You can start to figure out why it feels like you're saying one thing and your partner's hearing something completely
something
different.
else. Exactly right. Yeah.
Tell me how you started to speak out and change your default mode.
My default mode?
Just freezing. Right.
Freezing,
I think that's what you said. Freezing and
freezing.
Kind of pushing it under the rug.
Pushing it down. Yeah. And I was just like, going
What did you work on? Tell me what steps you did.
Being an example for the kids was like the number one thing. And a lot of it came down to like with the body work. So like trying to feel what was happening in your body, because even though I was like shrinking down, when you're confronted with an aggressor sort of thing, your heart rates, my heart was pumping. I could feel my face like getting flushed, like I'm freaking out.
Yeah. So what is the body work? What helped you realize that this was a physical response?
When you realize like it's the physical response, like then your body is your mind is then being like, we're being chased by a lion, like everything's like going haywire, like
not rational anymore.
Not rational anymore. So I knew
what body work did you do Was there a certain
tapping,
type or?
yeah, I did like tapping. So I did like
You
the
did?
collarbone tapping, yeah.
Okay.
Which was, for me back in the day, the type of person I was. Also, I was like, cringe. Like, I feel like that sort of reaction's also going to set him off. So I'm like, if he's explosive, I'm like turning around like, we're safe, like.
But they weren't. He wasn't,
yeah,
though,
no.
was he?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You think
yeah.
so.
Yeah.
So much of it is in our head
In
about
our own
what we
heads
think or
is
are
gonna
worried or
happen.
fearful
Yeah,
of. And then
that's right.
sometimes when you try them, you're like, oh, he didn't even know.
Yeah, exactly. I just sort of turned around doing the deep breaths, calm myself down, like, yeah. So,
okay. So body work.
Yeah, I did a lot of the body work, and then also trying to find ways that would diffuse it without enabling, so
Yes.
like, yeah, like how you were saying about like using specific phrases, like, so I took like without escalating the issue, like if the kids were around or something, I would just like, as soon as insults would start coming in, I would say like, I'm no longer engaging in this, like, yeah.
How hard was that for you to start doing, though?
Very, very hard. Yeah, very difficult.
It's so hard.
It is, yes, because, naturally you're in this defense mode, and so, just going back to like when you sort of start realizing, I realized like that I was spending so much time defending like a version of myself that like he had in his head of me that didn't exist, so it's like I was defending like something imaginary, and that's just so exhausting because you're like, I'm not even like this or doing this or anything. So it's like once all those accusations start coming in, and when you're learning about PTSD also, or complex trauma, like the accusations are also like a confession, so it's like, it's really,
tell me more about that. Yes.
Like it's a projection. So it's like sort of what, he's telling you clear as day, like sort of more about what's going on inside him with what he's saying to you than what you think it is also about, that you think that he's saying it about you, but it's, more of a reflection of what's going inside of him.
That is so true. I love the way you said that, because, and that's where the empathy can come in.
Exactly.
Once you understand that.
Yeah, that's right.
And the responses can change once you realize.
100%. Yeah. And I started seeing things like how some of the things he would say, rather than take them personally, I just would imagine him as a little kid, and like, that's how your parents spoke to you. Like, I mean, mine wasn't a walk in the park or anything, but like I had absent, both my parents were like emotionally absent, and whereas his were like full on and involved, so to be able to have that empathy, it was like, I would just try to look at him like a little kid. Had to like really deprogram myself completely to be able to understand what was happening here. And that was, one of the big realizations was like, if I can create this space for him to be able to sort of unpack, like, it's like he had his own defense sort of suit on, you know what I mean? Like that he was reactive and everything, and no one has ever given him the opportunity to relax and calm down. He's never had that space.
Before we wrap, I want to leave you with my 3 biggest takeaways from these incredible conversations today. First, so many people feel exactly like Sabrina. They are terrified that if people really knew what happened to them, what's still going on inside, how the past still affects them, no one would want to be their friend, let alone their partner. But you guys, here's the truth. You don't have to open up to everyone. You're allowed to have boundaries, but the people who truly love you, they can handle the truth. They want to know you, because real intimacy is built on being seen, mess and all. Second, so many of us are suffering in silence, believing we have to figure it all out ourselves. And Elle's story is such a powerful reminder that you don't have to do it alone, that by reaching out for help, even just to a few trusted people, you can solve the issue so much faster or heal so much faster. Healing is deep, messy, transformative work, and sometimes it needs witnesses, it needs support, and letting the right people in can change everything. And third, I think you heard it from all three of these interviews, but real change starts with true honesty with yourself. It's not easy. And I think Emily said it best when she started to realize that she needs to look at herself. It was like a gut punch. But Emily's story about parenting and really brought this home for me. She realized that by staying silent about her pain, she was teaching her children to shrink, to hide their own struggles. And when she finally faced the truth and shared it, she was able to break that cycle. So if you're listening today and any of these stories resonated with you, I want you to know that you're not alone. You don't have to keep it all inside. You don't have to do it all perfectly, and you don't have to do it alone. This is Love and Trauma, the real deal. Thank you so much for listening. And if this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And we will put in the show notes how you can watch the full interviews with all three of these amazing women. Until next time, take care of yourself. And remember, healing is possible.
All right, that's a wrap for today on Love and Trauma, the real deal. Big thanks to my guests for sharing their insights. Couldn't have done it without you. Now, for those of you looking to take this journey further, I've got something special. Head to my website to grab Real Tactics, Real Healing, a survivor's playbook for navigating a relationship with a trauma survivor. It's packed with everything you need to know, do, and say to navigate the emotional minefield, find your balance, and regain your self-worth and happiness.